Hungary is in the middle of the battle against COVID-19, but it's been largely effective in fighting that battle, and it's fighting issues of its own. And to discuss Europe's battle against COVID-19 and how Hungary is coping up, I have with me this evening Dr. Zoltan Kovacs, who's the State Secretary for International Communication and also the international spokesman for the Hungarian government. Dr. Zoltan, are you getting my audio?
I am. Good evening.
Good evening. It's nice to speak to you this evening. Mr. Zoltan, this evening I was looking up the numbers. 3,035 cases of coronavirus recorded in Hungary. 350 deaths recorded. I think that's roughly about 11.5%. The mortality rate much higher than India. But we know that Europe is fighting its own battles. But I think some measures that Hungary has taken to lock down its borders early, some early measures seem to be paying off for your country, isn't it?
That's right. I believe we have made and put into place all the necessary measures that were required at the very beginning, in the beginning of March. As a matter of fact, we have acted a lot earlier than many Western European countries. That's why you see a fairly flat curve, a fairly flat number, if it's about the number of those who've been infected. And even the number of those who died is not especially high or not at all high in an international comparison if you take a look at the 1 per million per capita kind of figure. So the Hungarian measures work for a reason, and that is we have introduced a national lockdown fairly early. By that we managed to almost stop the virus, or slow down the spread of the virus. And as of today, as a matter of fact, it's the 4th of May, we have entered the second phase of the defense, and that is we have divided the country into 2 different zones, one including Budapest, and that is the capital and the neighboring county, and the rest of the country. We believe it's going to work for the futures too. The national lockdown basically meant not as harsh measures as you've seen in Western Europe. Because in, say, Italy, Spain, even the United Kingdom and France, they were a little bit late by introducing these measures. There were fairly harsh measures that had to be introduced after 2 or 3 weeks. We managed to avoid this. We hope that it's not going to hit not only the Hungarian population, the Hungarians, but also neither the Hungarian economy as hard as we've seen in the western part of Europe. Very obviously, we also have to adjust our measures to the neighboring countries. We also see a pattern that is emerging in Central Europe, including not only Hungary, but Slovakia, the Czech Republic, yes. Poland, and some countries in the Balkans. But we are very confident that these measures, not only in Hungary, but in the region, are going to work well.
Yeah. Dr. Zoltan, one thing that we are seeing, and this is something that I wanted to ask you this evening, Hungary is facing a lot of questions, especially from the Western media, on a law that you brought in to fight COVID-19. Now, has the law been effective, and why are you facing so much criticism? Now, I know that the European Union Commission has said there is nothing wrong with the law itself, but how has it helped you in the fight against COVID-19?
Basically, all countries around the globe had to introduce some fairly harsh measures in general, and also had to face the reality that fighting the virus and putting effective measures on the ground required decisive and immediate action. In order to achieve that, we have asked Parliament's approval that the extraordinary powers of the government, if it's about defending the country and the Hungarians from the virus, is extended and given free hands to make immediate and decisive action. But I have to emphasize that it's only in the field of fighting the virus. There were many accusations that we extended these extraordinary measures to all elements and aspects of our lives, but that simply is not true. As we speak, the Hungarian parliament is in session. The normal way of decision lawmaking is going on. And again, the past couple of weeks and the weeks ahead of us simply prove that the extraordinary measures, the immediate possibility of coming into action, if it's required in the healthcare system, the authorities to be able to step up effectively, is indeed required.
Yeah. I see something common between what's happening in Hungary and what's happening in India. I know that Viktor Orban, your Prime Minister, has been the subject of several attacks by the Western media. And there's something about some sections of the Western media that we too face. Leaders who are successful in battling COVID-19, for some reason, are being the subject of attacks by some sections. Do you think there's something wrong there?
What is wrong is the attitude and behavior of most of they call themselves liberal media, which was always leading the way if it was about Hungary bashing for the past couple of years. And indeed, as you suggest, we've seen examples of India bashing for the past couple of years. As a matter of fact, we take it as they are. These are political attacks on those governments, politicians they don't like. And they don't really matter anymore. What matters for us, and I believe that stands also for India, is the interest of the Hungarian people. And that is, we have an elected government with a very clear mandate coming from the Hungarian people. Our responsibility is towards the Hungarians. Therefore, no foreign political or journalistic attack is going to change our minds if it's about the effective and efficient measures against the virus and fighting the aftermath of the virus itself.
Yeah, and I know that your Prime Minister, Mr. Viktor Orban, has warned of a second wave. Tell us a little more about his concerns, and also about your plans on opening up the economy.
It's very much true that most scientists are still struggling to understand how the virus works. We try to take a look around the globe, find the best practices, obviously to participate in the scientific exchange. And it's too early to say how the virus is going to behave. But many suggest, as you've put in your question, that there's a high probability that sometimes in September, October, and that is the beginning of our autumn, a second wave of the virus is going to come. That's why we are very cautious when it's about opening up, and that is restarting our lives and the economy. As we speak, we have started to introduce the first measures this week. And I think that's the key and the essential element actually to the approach, both if it's about the virus itself and if it's about the economy. Step by step, by a strict schedule, we have to start rebuilding our lives. How it's going to happen, we're going to experiment with in many respects. Very obviously, the economy comes to everybody's mind, since many people have already lost their jobs, and our biggest fear actually is that many are also going to lose jobs. So our primary effort is to thwart the losing of jobs. We have introduced hundreds of millions of euros package to save jobs and help those companies who are help us fighting the virus. We very much hope that a gradual, very strict approach to reopening the country, reopening the economy is going to work, but it's going to be a gradual process. Until we have a vaccine, we can't say that the fight against the virus will be over within a couple of weeks or months.
Yeah, speaking about the economy and opening up the economy and where the European Union stands, I know a lot of countries are in a hurry to open up the economy, and I know Hungary itself is also keen on kicking back and rebooting its economy. But there's a big debate on, even in the Europe, about reviewing the entire, balance of ties as far as China is concerned, over dependence on China. Where does Hungary stand on the China debate?
The relationship with China obviously is a very specific issue all countries around the globe are coping with. Hungary has, in many respects, historical ties with China, dating back to the 1960s. And our approach has always been dependent on and founded on mutual respect. I think that's the essence in the relationship of any two countries. But at the same time, obviously, we have to face global challenges, as you suggested, and that is how much a country, or in our case, in Hungary, the European Union's economies, supply chains, especially if it's about the healthcare system, are dependent on one country. And very obviously, that's a challenge, that's an issue many countries around the globe have to address. And I think one lesson we have already drawn from the virus, fighting the virus and the aftermath, the economic aftermath and the effects of the virus, that all countries around the globe have to take care of their own supply chains, especially if it's about the healthcare system. If you are dependent on only one resource and one source, you are dependent on that route, that supply chain by all means. And that Hungary and Europe and all countries around the globe have to, I believe, avoid for the future. That is a very harsh lesson we are learning for the moment.
Yeah. I had a very short last question before I let you go, Dr. Zoltan Kovacs. Now, this question is about your equation with the European Union itself. You know that the EU spoke about an economic package. How effective has the European Union really been in supporting member nations with an economic stimulus package?
Well, so far we haven't seen much new stimulus coming. You know, the European Union works in a very interesting and special way because the European budget is following a 7 years pattern. And we have already basically have approached and finished the last years of the European budget. So they were only able to ease the use of those money, those resources that have already been available for Hungary. So most of the stimulus package we have been talking about and we have introduced are coming from Hungary's own resources. But very definitely the upcoming 7 years, which is starting next year in 21, is going to be crucial in addressing the Europe-wide, the global challenges of the economy. So our expectations are that we are going to be able to flex the new European budget into a shape which is going to help Hungary, all European countries and the European Union itself to fight the aftermath of the virus.